A photograph can lie beautifully. In this one, Maureen McCormick's eyes sparkle, her smile bright enough to outshine the studio lights. To the world, she is joy itself. Golden hair, clear skin, perfect posture. America's favorite daughter. But the truth hiding behind that smile was heavier than anyone imagined. She was the symbol of innocence for a generation that wanted to believe everything on television was safe. Families gathered each week to watch her laugh, cry, and solve life's little lessons before bedtime. For millions, Marcia Brady wasn't just a character. She was a comfort, a memory of simpler times. But for Maureen, that image became both her crown and her curse. Every smile came with expectation. Every glance carried the weight of perfection. Behind the studio doors, the pressure never slept. She was adored for being flawless, yet that very perfection would one day consume her. Because while America fell in love with Marcia, Maureen was quietly disappearing beneath her. No one saw the sleepless nights, the silent insecurities, the feeling of being trapped in a role she could never step out of. To the world, she was radiant. To herself, she was invisible. This is the story of Maureen McCormick, the girl who played America's sweetheart, the woman who lost herself behind the smile, and the survivor who found her way back through the wreckage of fame. It begins as most myths do, in California, under the blinding sun of a dream that promised everything and almost took it all away. She was born Maureen Denise McCormick on August 5, 1956, in Encino, California, a city bathed in sunlight, resting just far enough from Hollywood to seem ordinary. She was the youngest of 4 children in a family that believed in hard work, faith, and simple joys. Her father, William, worked as a teacher. Her mother, Irene, stayed home and prayed that her children would stay good in a world that was changing fast. The McCormicks weren't rich, but they were close. Backyard picnics, Sunday dinners, laughter that filled their small home. Yet even then, Maureen stood out, bright-eyed, curious, and unshakably drawn to the spotlight. At just 6 years old, she entered and won the Baby Miss San Fernando Valley pageant. The moment the crowd clapped, she felt something electric, the warm rush of being seen. By 8, she was on national television in a Mattel commercial, clutching a doll with that now famous smile. Casting directors noticed. Calls began to come in, guest roles on shows like My 3 Sons, I Dream of a Genie, and The Farmer's Daughter. Her childhood, which once was filled with hopscotch and homework, became a rotation of call times, fittings, and sets that smelled of hairspray and hot lights. At school, she tried to blend in, but even teachers treated her differently. The little girl who was already on TV. She liked the attention at first, but fame, even in its girliest form, can be isolating. Her classmates saw a starlet. She saw a lonely girl trying to be liked for who she really was.
The McCormicks watched proudly as Maureen's career blossomed, unaware of how early success can twist innocence into performance. Every audition brought new applause and new pressure to keep shining brighter. She didn't know it yet, but those bright lights of early stardom would one day cast the darkest shadows of her life. It was 1969, a year of moon landings, protests, and shifting dreams. And in a small casting office in Los Angeles, a 15-year-old girl walked in wearing hope like perfume. Her name was Maureen McCormick, and she was about to step into history. The show was called The Brady Bunch. A simple premise: a widower with 3 sons marries a widow with 3 daughters, blending 2 families under one roof. A perfect new household for a nation hungry for optimism. But Sherwood Schwartz, the show's creator, needed a face that could sell the dream. A girl who embodied warmth, innocence, and the American ideal. When Maureen entered the room, he stopped looking. She wasn't just reading for Marcia Brady, she was Marcia Brady. Almost overnight, Maureen's life transformed. Sets became her second home, scripts replaced textbooks, The 9 smiling faces in the show's famous grid became her second family. Millions of viewers tuned in every week to watch the Bradys navigate small-town lessons wrapped in laughter. And at the heart of it all, there she was, radiant, composed, seemingly untouched by the chaos of adolescence. Marcia, Marcia, Marcia. The line that would echo for decades became both her triumph and her cage. People adored her. Children wanted to be her. Parents pointed to her as a model of perfect teenage grace. But the more the world praised Marcia, the harder it became for Maureen to breathe. The show offered her everything: fame, attention, identity. But it also erased her individuality. There was no separation between who she played and who she was. On-screen perfection began to infect her off-screen life. Every pimple, every bad hair day, every human flaw felt like a betrayal of the image she was hired to represent. Even her family noticed the shift. The girl who once chased butterflies in the yard now worried about lighting angles and fan mail counts. She was growing up in front of a nation that didn't allow her to grow up at all. She was America's golden girl, but she belonged to everyone except herself. Television is a strange kind of family. You live together for hours, memorize each other's lines, and share the kind of secrets that never leave the dressing room. The Brady Bunch cast truly cared for one another. They laughed, teased, and played like real siblings. But even in that warmth, there was distance. Maureen was the face of perfection, the benchmark for beauty. Co-stars admired her, but that title came with loneliness. To be the pretty one meant living under constant scrutiny. Every camera angle, every outfit, every breath compared, discussed, judged. She learned to carry herself with poise, even when her heart trembled.
Yet for Maureen, the deeper emotions, insecurity, confusion, longing, were harder to hide. The studio audience clapped. America adored her, but she often went home exhausted, unsure whether the love she received belonged to Marcia or Maureen. When the show ended in 1974, she was barely 18. 5 seasons of fame had made her a household name, but stripped away her sense of self. She stood at the edge of adulthood, staring at a world that no longer needed her to smile on cue. The fans still saw the perfect girl next door, but behind closed doors, that girl was vanishing. There's a moment frozen in American memory, a football sailing through the air, a teenage girl clutching her face and crying, "Oh, my nose!" That single scene became one of television's most iconic moments. Audiences laughed, magazines replayed it, late-night shows quoted it, and somewhere in California, a teenage actress was quietly realizing that her face, her pain, had become property of the public. The Brady Bunch wasn't just entertainment, it was escapism. In a country shaken by war and change, the Bradys offered a safe world where everything could be fixed with a hug and a smile. But while America clung to that dream, Maureen was learning what it meant to live inside one. Every photo shoot demanded perfection. Every interview expected sunshine. Her popularity soared. She was on posters, lunchboxes, and fan magazines. Yet the brighter her image became, the less she recognized herself in it. When the lights dimmed, she'd stare into mirrors and wonder where Marcia ended and Maureen began. At school, classmates teased her. On the street, strangers called her by her character's name. It was flattering at first, then it became haunting. She was loved for being someone who didn't exist. Years later, she'd confess that fame, in its purest form, is isolation wearing diamonds. And by the time the Brady Bunch ended, Maureen McCormick, America's radiant big sister, was already struggling with the shadows that success had left behind. Because the smile that once united a nation was starting to feel like a mask she couldn't take off. When the cameras stopped rolling, Maureen had to face what fame had hidden. Behind the bright laughter of the Brady years was a home filled with quiet pain. Her family carried secrets, the kind no one talked about in the 1960s. Her grandmother had died of syphilis. Her mother had carried the infection during pregnancy. For a child raised on whispers and half-truths, the result was terror. She grew up convinced she might have inherited the disease. That fear followed her into adulthood, shaping her mind in ways she couldn't understand. She later admitted that when she needed to cry on cue during filming, she imagined being told she was sick. The thought brought instant tears, not from acting talent, but from genuine dread. As she entered high school, the pressure to look perfect grew unbearable. The network praised her beauty. Magazines celebrated her image. But behind the lens, Maureen was fighting a secret battle with her body. She developed bulimia, a silent, consuming illness that ruled her teenage years. She would binge on food, then force herself to purge, desperate to keep the image that made her famous. It wasn't vanity, it was survival in an industry that punished imperfection.
She hid it from everyone. Co-stars, family, even herself. Between takes, she smiled, recited her lines, and played the part the world demanded. But inside, she was collapsing. The perfect Marcia Brady existed only on television. Maureen McCormick, the real girl behind that flawless smile, was already breaking apart. And soon, that break would widen into something far darker. When the Brady Bunch ended in 1974, Maureen McCormick stood at the edge of adulthood with the world at her feet and nothing beneath it to hold her. She was 18, beautiful and famous, but the phone stopped ringing. Producers loved Marcia Brady, not Maureen McCormick. Hollywood had adored the good girl. Now it didn't know what to do with her. She tried to audition for serious roles, but the shadow of Marcia followed everywhere she went. Casting agents smiled politely and called her too wholesome. Behind that rejection, loneliness grew, and then came the parties, the new friends, and the drug that promised escape. Cocaine entered her life quietly, almost politely, offering what fame no longer could: release. At first, it was just fun, a high to forget the stillness after years of applause. But soon, it became survival. By the time she turned 20, she was fully addicted. The same girl who had once taught America how to laugh on cue was now fighting to stay awake through the chaos. Her world began to shrink. Missed calls, missed auditions, missed chances. One of those chances was Raiders of the Lost Ark. She was supposed to meet Steven Spielberg. Instead, she locked herself in a room, lost in the haze. When she finally came to, the opportunity and much of her career was gone. Shame crept in where applause once lived. She started trading whatever she could for the next high: money, jewelry, sometimes even intimacy. Addiction had stolen her judgment and left only craving. By 1981, during the filming of The Brady Brides, Maureen hit rock bottom. She locked herself in a closet for 3 days, clutching a vial and watching her reflection disappear in a mirror streaked with tears. That was her lowest moment. The day she realized that the character who symbolized perfection had led her to a life defined by destruction. And yet, somewhere deep inside, a spark remained. Small, trembling, but alive. The same girl who once dreamed under California sunlight wasn't gone. She was just waiting to be found again. After years of running from herself, Maureen stumbled into a place she never expected to be: a church. Her co-star Jerry Hauser, who played her husband on The Brady Brides, invited her to come along one Sunday. She didn't plan to find faith that day, she just wanted to breathe. But in that quiet sanctuary, surrounded by strangers singing hymns, she felt something she hadn't felt in years: peace. And standing among that peace was a man who would soon become the anchor in her storm: Michael Cummings. Their romance moved fast, too fast for some.
They married on March 16, 1985, just a month after their first date. To the outside world, it was impulsive. To Maureen, it was divine timing. Michael was steady, patient, unafraid of the chaos she carried. He saw beyond the headlines, beyond Marcia Brady, beyond the addict. He saw Maureen, scared, flawed, but still capable of love.
But Michael stayed. He prayed with her, pleaded with her, refused to give up. Therapy came next, then faith, then medication, Prozac for her depression, counseling for her trauma. Slowly, the fog began to lift. Maureen learned to live one sober day at a time. She attended church regularly, surrounded herself with people who didn't want Marcia Brady. They wanted her. And in that fragile space between destruction and grace, she began to heal. This wasn't yet a comeback. It was the beginning of redemption. Small, unglamorous, and absolutely real. Love saved her life, but it wasn't the kind of love you see on TV. It was messy, bruised, imperfect, the kind that grows stronger in the wreckage. Maureen and Michael's marriage began like a spark in dry grass, fast, bright, impossible to control. They got engaged 30 days after their first date. Friends whispered that it wouldn't last. Even Maureen, still trembling from addiction, doubted she could be loved that way. But Michael stayed, holding on through her relapses, her guilt, her restless search for peace. In the early years, their marriage was anything but easy. Michael battled his own demons with alcohol. Maureen fought depression that came in waves, sometimes crashing without warning. Their arguments could shake the walls, their silences could last for days. And yet, something divine kept them tethered. Faith. Our faith, Maureen later said, that's why we're still here. They clung to that belief through every relapse, every apology, every promise to try again. Slowly, through therapy and prayer, they began to rebuild the pieces they had both shattered. Then came their daughter, Natalie, in 1989, the purest reason Maureen had ever been given to live. Holding her newborn in her arms, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Purpose. Not the kind written in scripts or sung in interviews, but a quiet, human calling to protect and nurture. Motherhood softened her. It gave her something fame never could: unconditional love. Every time Natalie laughed, it drowned out the echoes of the old life Maureen was leaving behind. And though depression still lingered, she began to understand that healing isn't a single moment, it's a series of choices made in faith and persistence. For the first time since she was a child, Maureen McCormick didn't have to perform for love. She simply had to stay. And she did. By the 1990s, the world had changed and so had she. The glossy image of Marcia Brady was now a nostalgic relic, and Maureen was ready to tell the truth behind it. She re-entered the spotlight not as the teen idol America remembered, but as a woman unafraid to reveal the cracks beneath the shine. Her first creative step back was music. In 1995, she released a country album titled When You Get Lonely. It didn't top the charts, but it was hers, honest, unfiltered, a voice no longer trapped in someone else's story. Critics admired her courage. Fans saw a woman finally writing her own verses. Then came a wave of television appearances: Celebrity Fit Club, Dancing with the Stars, and later a Very Brady renovation brought her back to screens not as a polished icon, but as a survivor. She laughed at herself, joked about her past, and showed the nation what recovery looked like in real time. But her greatest triumph wasn't on TV, it was on the page. In 2008, she released her memoir, Here's the Story: Surviving Marcia Brady and Finding My True Voice. It became a New York Times bestseller, climbing to the top 4 and staying there for 3 weeks. Readers expected gossip. What they found was grace. Maureen laid bare her trauma, her addiction, and her journey toward forgiveness, not as confessions, but as lessons. Her second act wasn't about reclaiming fame, it was about redefining it. She no longer needed validation from strangers. She had found meaning in truth, in motherhood, in quiet faith. The girl who once smiled for millions now smiled for herself and for the life she had fought so hard to rebuild.
In the end, it wasn't a role, a record deal, or a spotlight that saved Maureen McCormick. It was faith. The same faith her mother once clung to in quiet prayer circles became Maureen's greatest medicine. It grounded her when the fame faded, when her body shook from withdrawal, when the silence of old memories returned like ghosts in the night. She began attending church regularly with Michael, not out of habit, but hunger, the need for something larger than the pain she had carried. There, surrounded by community, she learned what forgiveness really meant. Not the public kind, not headlines or talk show apologies, but the private forgiveness that happens in whispers. Forgiving herself for the years lost to addiction, for the chances she let slip away, for the little girl who had been forced to grow up too soon.
Faith also became the glue that mended her marriage. She and Michael stayed together through what she called the heavy-duty years, storms of resentment, relapse, and redemption. Some days they held each other. Some days they only held their faith. But through it all, they refused to let go. And through that endurance, she found grace, a peace that wasn't about perfection, but about presence. She learned that recovery never truly ends. It just becomes a quieter companion, walking beside you. Now in her 60s, Maureen doesn't preach, she simply lives. Her faith is visible in the way she treats others with patience, humility, and empathy. She speaks to recovering addicts, visits shelters, and volunteers her time quietly, away from cameras. She knows that survival alone isn't the end of the story. Sharing survival is what gives it meaning. Forgiveness, she says, isn't forgetting, it's remembering without reliving. And in that, she found her freedom. Today, Maureen McCormick stands as something rare in Hollywood, a woman who survived her own myth. The world still remembers Marcia Brady, the perfect teenager frozen in reruns, forever radiant and untouched by time. But Maureen is no longer chasing that reflection. Her beauty now lies in honesty, her fame in endurance. She quilts, she gardens, she spends afternoons outside with her husband and daughter, enjoying the ordinary moments that once seemed impossible. She still acts occasionally, but on her own terms, appearing in projects that speak to her spirit rather than her image. To the fans who meet her today, she is gracious, grounded, and grateful. To herself, she is finally enough. Look at that old photograph again. The smile is still there, but it's different now. Quieter, wiser, and earned. It no longer hides pain. It testifies to resilience. Every line on her face is a map of the battles she's fought and the peace she's found. She is the woman who fell from fame and climbed back to faith. The actress who faced addiction and chose love. The girl who learned that healing isn't about returning to who you were. It's about becoming who you were meant to be. For years, America called her Marcia Brady. But when the credits finally rolled, Maureen McCormick found her true role. Not the perfect daughter, not the fallen star, but the survivor who turned her scars into light.